A piercing scream shattered the dawn, pulling 8-year-old Jamie Hensley, a scrawny boy in a tattered white shirt, to the raging Verde River's edge in 1872. Haunted by his father's death in those same waters, Jamie dives into the flood to save a stranger, unaware this act will unravel a chilling secret and forge an unbreakable bond. Will his courage rewrite his destiny, or will the river claim more than he can bear? Be captivated by a tale of bravery and truth. Subscribe now, share where you're listening from, and uncover the heart-pounding twists waiting downstream. What secrets lie in his father's journal? Stay tuned to find out. The dawn air hung heavy with the scent of wet earth and churned mud. The Verde River roaring like a wounded beast in the Arizona territory of 1872. Jamie Hensley, a wiry 8-year-old, stood on the bank, his bare feet sinking into the silt. His oversized white shirt, a hand-me-down from his pa, flapped loose to his knees, torn at the hem, while his patched brown trousers clung to his skinny legs. Wind whipped his matted hair across his eyes, stinging with dust. 2 years ago, this river stole his pa, Thomas, swallowing him in a flood the townsfolk called a tragedy. Jamie never bought it, not fully. He kicked at a clump of mud, his small hands rummaging through the storm's debris. A glint caught his eye, a leather-bound journal, half buried, its pages swollen with water. His paws, heart-thumping, Jamie pried it open. The ink was smeared, but the final scrawl held clear. Following Silas Bragg's caravan, strange cargo. The words hit like a stone to the chest. Silas Bragg, the merchant with a smile too wide for trust, was the last man his pa had chased. Jamie's fingers tightened on the journal, questions clawing at him. A scream sliced through the river's growl, sharp and human. Jamie froze, squinting through the morning haze. There, 30 yards out, a boy clung to a splintered tree trunk amid the churning red water. An Apache kid, maybe 10, his dark eyes wide with terror, fingers slipping on the bark. The current tugged at him, hungry. Jamie's breath caught. He saw his pa in those eyes, saw the moment the river took him, his hand reaching, then gone. Not again. He wouldn't let it happen again. His boots lay forgotten as he scrambled to the water's edge, heart hammering like a war drum. The river was a monster, frothing and spitting. But Jamie didn't think. Thinking was for grown folks. He yanked off his belt, tied it to a low branch for grip, and plunged in. The cold hit like a fist, stealing his air. The current snatched him, spinning him like a leaf, his shirt billowing, dragging him down. He kicked hard, remembering pa's lessons. Find the flow, boy. Don't fight it. The water stung his eyes, mud clouding his vision. But Jamie locked on the Apache boy's silhouette. A wave slammed him against a rock, pain flaring in his ribs. He gasped, swallowing grit. The boy's grip was failing, one hand clawing air. Jamie lunged, his small fingers snagging the boy's wrist. "Hold on!" he yelled, voice lost in the river's roar. The boy's eyes met his, desperate, trusting. Jamie pulled, muscles burning, his belt rope taut against the branch. The tree trunk shifted, cracking under the current's weight. Jamie wrapped his free arm around the boy, kicking toward a bend where the water slowed. A submerged log grazed his shin, tearing skin, but he didn't let go. The river fought them, tossing them through rapids, but Jamie angled for the shallows. His feet scraped sand, then mud. With a final heave, he dragged the boy onto a sodden bank, collapsing beside him, chest heaving, shirt plastered to his frame. The Apache boy coughed, spitting muddy water, his body trembling. Jamie sat up, shivering, his hair a wet tangle. "You okay?" he rasped. The boy nodded, clutching a gash on his arm. "Tyann," he whispered, pointing to himself. Jamie managed a grin. Jamie. Tyann's eyes darted to the trees, wide with fear. He stammered, "Bad men. Chains." The word sent a chill through Jamie, colder than the river. He tucked his pa's journal into his waistband, its weight heavy with secrets. Before he could ask more, a distant thud of hooves echoed through the cottonwoods. Jamie's stomach knotted. He grabbed Tyann's hand, pulling him toward the brush. "We gotta move," he said, voice low. They ducked behind a tangle of mesquite, Jamie's heart racing as the hoofbeats grew louder. Through the leaves, he glimpsed 4 riders, their shadows long in the rising sun. Leading them was Silas Bragg, his hat low, a coiled rope at his hip. He held a scrap of cloth, Tyann's torn sleeve, turning it over like a hunter with a trophy. "They're close," Silas growled, his voice carrying over the river's din. "Find that boy, and whoever's with him." Jamie's fingers tightened on the journal. His paw had followed Silas, and it cost him his life. Now Jamie had jumped into the same fight, with no way back. The river hadn't killed him, but whatever Silas was hiding might. Silas Bragg's growl faded into the cottonwoods, but the threat of his riders lingered like smoke. Jamie Hensley, soaked and shivering, tugged Tyann deeper into the mesquite thicket, the Apache boy's injured arm leaving a faint blood trail on the leaves. The Verde River's roar was a distant snarl now, but the Arizona Territory's heat was rising, baking the earth under Jamie's bare feet. His tattered white shirt clung to his scrawny frame, the journal in his waistband, a heavy reminder of his paw's fate. They couldn't stay still, not with Silas hunting. The forest stretched ahead, a maze of twisted junipers and thorny acacias, their shadows sharp under the climbing sun. Jamie's eyes darted, picking a path where the ground dipped into a dry wash. "This way," he whispered, his voice rough from river water. Tyann limped behind, his swollen ankle forcing him to lean on Jamie's shoulder. The boy's breaths were short, his dark eyes scanning the trees like a cornered deer. "Bad men, find us," Tyann muttered, his broken English sharp with fear. Jamie's gut twisted. He didn't know what chains meant, but Tyann's trembling told him enough. His paw's journal burned against his skin. Strange cargo. Whatever Silas was hiding, it was worth killing for. They stumbled into the wash, its sandy bottom muffling their steps. Jamie crouched, pulling Tyann down beside a boulder. "We'll hide here till they pass," he said, peering over the rim. Dust clouds rose in the distance, the riders' silhouettes weaving through the trees. Silas's voice barked orders, too far to make out but close enough to prickle Jamie's neck. The wash offered cover, but it was a trap if the riders doubled back. Jamie's mind raced, recalling Pa's hunting tricks. "Move like a fox, boy. Never stay where they expect." He scanned the terrain. A ridge of red rock rose to the east, its base choked with sagebrush. It was a hard climb, but it'd give them a vantage point. "We gotta get up there," Jamie said, pointing. Tyann nodded, wincing as he shifted his weight. Jamie tore a strip from his already ragged shirt, wrapping Tyann's ankle tight. "Lean on me. We're faster together." They scrambled out of the wash, thorns snagging Jamie's trousers, drawing pinpricks of blood. The ridge loomed, its jagged face baking in the sun. Jamie's small hands found holds in the rock, his bare feet slipping on loose shale. Tyann gritted his teeth, climbing despite the pain, his fingers clawing for grip. Halfway up, a shout echoed below. Jamie froze, flattening against the stone. One of Silas's men, a lanky figure with a rifle, stood in the wash, eyeing their tracks. "They went this way," he called, waving the others over. Jamie's heart pounded like a blacksmith's hammer. He pulled Tyann into a shallow crevice, the rock hot against their backs. The riders gathered below, Silas's hat tilting as he studied the ground. Clever little rats, he muttered, his voice carrying on the wind. Spread out. They're climbing. Jamie held his breath, Tyen's hand gripping his arm. The crevice was tight, barely hiding their small frames, but the sagebrush below masked their shadows. A pebble rolled under Jamie's foot, clattering down. Silas's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. The moment stretched taut as a bowstring. Then a coyote yipped somewhere north, drawing Silas's gaze. "Move!" he barked, leading his men toward the sound. Jamie exhaled, his chest aching. They weren't safe yet. He nudged Tyen, and they climbed higher, reaching a ledge where the ridge flattened into a scrubby plateau. From here, they could see the forest sprawling west, the Verde's red ribbon glinting far off. But no roads, no towns, just wilderness, and Silas's men circling below like vultures. Jamie's throat was dry as bone, his canteen lost in the river. He spotted a cluster of prickly pear cacti, their pads swollen with juice. "Wait here," he told Tyen, crawling to slice a pad with a sharp stone. He scooped the pulpy flesh, offering it to Tyen. "Eat slow. It'll keep us going." Tyen hesitated, then took it, his face easing as the moisture hit his tongue. Jamie ate too, the tartness sharp but life-giving. For a moment, they were just two boys, sharing a meal under a merciless sky. But the quiet broke. A horse snorted below the ridge, close. Jamie peered over, spotting a rider dismounting, rifle in hand, following a smear of Tyen's blood on a rock. Jamie's mind flashed to pause stories of Apache trackers. Leave no trace, or it's your grave. He grabbed a handful of dirt, rubbing it over the bloodstain on Tyen's arm. "We gotta keep moving," he said, pointing to a narrow trail winding north. "There's a canyon up there. We can lose 'em." They ran, Tyen hobbling but stubborn, his trust in Jamie unspoken but fierce. The trail dipped into a gully, its walls studded with mesquite roots. Jamie's legs burned, his shirt catching on every branch, tearing wider. Tyen's breaths grew ragged, his ankle slowing them. Behind, the rider's boots crunched, gaining. Jamie spotted a hollow under a fallen log, barely big enough for two. "In here," he hissed, shoving Tyen inside and squeezing after. He piled leaves over the entrance, their breaths mingling in the dark. The rider's shadow passed, his rifle glinting. "I see your tracks, boys," he called, voice low and mocking. Jamie's pulse thundered, Tyen's hand finding his in the gloom. The journal pressed against his ribs, its secrets heavier than ever. Pa had died chasing Silas's truth. Now Jamie was running from it, with a boy he'd sworn to protect. The rider's steps faded, but Jamie knew Silas wouldn't quit. The canyon was their only shot, but it was miles off, and the sun was climbing higher, turning the forest into a furnace. They were out of time, and Silas's noose was tightening. The rider's mocking voice dissolved into the gully's heat, leaving Jamie Hensley and Tyen huddled in their leaf-strewn hollow, hearts pounding like hoofbeats. The Arizona Territory sun scorched the earth, turning the air thick and heavy, but the boys didn't dare move. Jamie's tattered white shirt, now little more than rags to his knees, stuck to his sweat-soaked skin, his Pay's journal a sodden weight in his waistband. Tyen's breaths rasped, his swollen ankle pulsing with each shift. They dodged Silas Bragg's man for now, but the canyon was still a distant hope, and the forest offered no mercy. Jamie peered through a gap in the leaves, the gully empty but alive with the hum of insects and the far-off snort of horses. "He's gone," he whispered, easing out of the hollow. Tyen followed, wincing, his eyes darting to every shadow. The trail north was their only shot, a winding path of cracked earth and stunted mesquites leading to a jagged canyon mouth. Jamie's bare feet burned on the hot ground, his patched trousers snagging on thorns. He glanced at Tyen, whose gash was oozing again, staining his arm. "We're close," Jamie lied, forcing a grin. Tayen nodded, his trust a silent anchor. The trail climbed, the forest thinning into a rocky slope, where red boulders loomed like ancient sentinels. Jamie's legs ached, his ribs still sore from the river's beating. But he kept moving, half carrying Tayen when the older boy faltered. The canyon's rim glinted ahead, a promise of cover. But the air grew tense, like the hush before a storm. A twig snapped behind them. Jamie spun, heart lurching. Nothing. Just wind, or so he hoped. He tugged Tayen faster, the slope steepening, loose gravel skittering underfoot. They reached a narrow ledge overlooking a dry creek bed. The canyon's entrance a shadowed gash in the distance. Jamie's chest heaved, his throat parched. He scanned for water, spotting a seep in the rock, its trickle barely enough to wet their lips. He cupped his hands, letting Tayen drink first, the Apache boy's eyes softening with gratitude. As Jamie drank, Tayen's voice broke the silence, low and urgent. "Bad men. Take my sister," he said, his broken English jagged with pain. "Take many. Chains. Sell far." Jamie froze, the journal's words, strange cargo burning in his mind. His pa had been chasing this truth, and it killed him. Before Jamie could ask more, a rifle's click echoed below. Silas Bragg stepped from the creek bed, his hat low, 3 riders at his back, their guns glinting in the noon light. "End of the trail, boys," Silas called, his voice smooth as snake oil but sharp as a blade. Jamie's blood ran cold. They were trapped, the ledge a dead end with a sheer drop behind. Tayen gripped Jamie's arm, whispering, "Run! They kill." But there was nowhere to go. Silas raised his rifle, smirking. "Your pa was nosy, kid. Pity you're just like him." Jamie's hand brushed the journal, his pa's last stand fueling his own. "You killed him," he spat, voice shaking but loud. "For what? Chains?" Silas's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing. "Smart for a runt. Too smart." He stepped closer, boots crunching gravel. "That Apache brat's worth a fortune. Hand him over, and maybe you walk." Jamie glanced at Tayen, whose face was set, defiant despite the fear. No. Jamie wouldn't trade a life, not like the men who took his pa. A low whistle pierced the air, sharp as a hawk's cry. Silas froze. From the canyon's rim, shadows moved, Apache warriors, their bows drawn, arrows gleaming. A tall man with braids and a scarred chest led them, his eyes locked on Tayen. "Father!" Tayen gasped, stumbling forward. Redhawk, the leader, raised a hand, and arrows flew, pinning Silas's men to the ground. Silas dove behind a boulder, cursing, his riders scrambling for cover. Jamie grabbed Tayen, ducking as bullets whined overhead. Redhawk's warriors descended, swift as wolves, their knives flashing. The fight was brutal, but brief. 2 of Silas's men fell, the 3rd bolted, leaving Silas pinned, his rifle empty. Redhawk towered over him, but Silas laughed, blood on his teeth. "You can't stop us. The boy knows too much." Jamie clutched the journal, its pages screaming his pa's truth. Silas wasn't just a killer, he was stealing kids, chaining them like cattle. Redhawk's gaze met Jamie's, a silent question. Jamie nodded, ready to fight. As the warriors bound Silas, Redhawk knelt by Tayen, his voice soft but fierce. "You're safe now." He turned to Jamie, offering a nod of respect. "You kept my son alive, white boy." Jamie's chest swelled, the journal heavy with purpose. If this story of courage grips you, subscribe to hear more tales of grit and heart. Share where you're listening from, and join us. The canyon loomed, a refuge, but Silas's words echoed. This wasn't over. His network was bigger, and they'd come for blood. The canyon's promise of refuge loomed, but Silas Bragg's venomous warning hung heavy, a storm brewing beyond the red rock walls. Jamie Hensley, his tattered white shirt barely clinging to his bony frame, stood among the Apache in their hidden valley. The Arizona Territory's dusk, painting the sky blood red in 1872. His patched trousers were caked with dust, his hair a wild tangle, but his grip on his pa's journal was iron tight. Tyen, bandaged but pale, stood close, his eyes scanning the horizon where Silas's men would come. Red Hawk's warriors sharpened knives and checked bows, their faces carved with resolve. Jamie felt the weight of what he'd started, a fight bigger than any 8-year-old should carry. The Apache camp buzzed with quiet purpose, hide lodges glowing under cook fires, women ushering children to caves at the valley's rear. Red Hawk gathered his men, his voice low. They'll come at night, with guns and fire. Silas's kind don't parley. Jamie's stomach churned. His pa had died for seeing too much, and now Silas's network, men who chained kids like Tyen, wanted blood to keep their secrets buried. Jamie's small hand brushed the journal, its pages a map to justice or a death sentence. As stars pricked the sky, a distant hoofbeat thrummed, growing to a thunderous roll. Red Hawk signaled, and warriors melted into shadows, bows ready. Jamie, too small for a weapon, crouched behind a rock with Tyen, his heart hammering. "They're here," Tyen whispered, pointing to the canyon mouth. Torches flared, revealing Silas, freed by his men, leading a dozen hired guns, hard-faced mercenaries with rifles and dynamite sticks. Their horses snorted, steam rising in the cool night air. Silas's voice cut through the dark, cold as a blade. "Give me the boys, or this valley burns." Red Hawk stepped forward, silhouetted against a fire. "No children are yours to take." Silas laughed, a sound like breaking bones, and raised a torch. "Then you all die." A mercenary lit a dynamite fuse, its hiss sharp in the silence. Jamie's breath caught. Pa's stories of war flashed in his mind. "Use the land, boy. It's your best weapon." He tugged Tyen, pointing to a narrow path snaking up the canyon wall. "We can help. Follow me." They scrambled up, Jamie's bare feet slipping on shale, Tyen grunting with pain but keeping pace. From the ledge, they saw the battle erupt, arrows slicing air, rifles cracking, dynamite blasting rock into shrapnel. An Apache warrior fell, blood darkening the dust. Jamie's eyes locked on a boulder perched above the canyon mouth, loosened by the blast. "If we push that, it'll block 'em," he hissed. Tyen nodded, understanding. They shoved, small hands straining, muscles burning. The boulder teetered, then crashed, sealing half the mercenaries outside with a thunderous roar. Below, Silas cursed, his men pinned in the choke point. Jamie's mind raced. Pa's hunting traps could work here. He grabbed a coil of rope from a warrior's stash, tying it across a path where horses charged. 2 mercenaries hit it, their mounts tumbling, riders sprawling. Apache arrows found them before they rose. Jamie's chest swelled, but fear clawed him. Silas was still fighting, his rifle spitting lead. A bullet grazed Tyen's shoulder, blood blooming. Jamie tore his shirt's last strip, binding the wound, his hands shaking. "Stay with me," he growled, pulling Tyen to cover. Red Hawk's men closed in, using rocks for shields, but Silas's dynamite kept them at bay, explosions shaking the valley. Jamie spotted Silas reloading behind a crate, his satchel open, glinting with metal, chains, small enough for kids. Rage surged. "He's the monster," Jamie whispered, grabbing a stone. He hurled it, striking Silas's hand, the rifle clattering. Silas roared, spotting him. "You little rat," he charged, but Jamie was ready, darting to a crevice, luring Silas away from his men. The chase was chaos. Silas's boots pounded, Jamie's small frame weaving through rocks. Tyen through dirt, blinding a mercenary trailing them. Red Hawk saw the opening, tackling Silas, his knife at the man's throat. The mercenaries, leaderless and trapped, wavered. Jamie climbed a rock, holding up Silas's satchel, chains spilling out. "Look what he does!" he shouted, voice cracking but fierce. The mercenaries froze, some lowering rifles, shame flickering in their eyes. 3 bolted, the rest surrendered, hands raised. As dawn broke, the valley was a graveyard of dust and blood. Silas, bound and bleeding, glared at Jamie, but the fight was gone from him. Red Hawk's men stood tall, though many bore wounds. Jamie clutched the journal, its truth now a weapon. The chains lay scattered, proof of Silas's evil. Tyan gripped Jamie's arm, a brother's bond forged in fire. The valley held, but whispers of more men, Silas's backers, stirred on the wind. Jamie knew the real war was just beginning. Whispers of Silas Bragg's backers haunted the wind, but the Apache Valley stood defiant, its scars bathed in the dawn's first light. Jamie Hensley, his tattered white shirt, now a shredded relic hanging to his knees, walked among the lodges in the Arizona Territory of 1872, his patched trousers stiff with dried blood and dust. His hair, a matted snarl, caught the breeze as he clutched his pa's journal, its pages a testament to a truth that had shattered his world. Tyan, his wounds bandaged, trailed close, his step steadier, but his eyes heavy with the battle's cost. Red Hawk's warriors rebuilt, their faces etched with loss, yet the camp hummed with life, children laughing, fires crackling. Jamie, just 8, felt older, the weight of his choices carving him anew. The Apache had given him a name, River Cord, for the rope he'd used to trap Silas's men. It felt right, like a brand of belonging. But the journal burned with unfinished business. Silas was bound, his chains exposed, yet his network's shadow loomed. Red Hawk gathered the elders, their voices low in a lodge adorned with woven blankets. "Silas's men won't stop," Red Hawk said, his scarred hands tracing a map of the territory. "They'll hunt Tyan, and now you, boy, for what you know." Jamie's small frame stiffened. His pa had died for this truth, and he'd fight to finish it. A scout burst in, breathless. "Riders, north! 10, maybe more, with wagons." Jamie's heart sank. Silas's backers come to silence them. Red Hawk's eyes met his, a silent pact. The camp sprang to action, women hiding children, warriors grabbing bows. Jamie, too small for a fight, remembered pa's tricks. "Confuse 'em, boy. Make 'em doubt." He whispered to Tyan, "We can slow 'em, like foxes." Tyan grinned, catching his drift. They slipped to the canyon's edge, gathering dry brush and flint. Jamie's hands, scraped raw, sparked a fire, smoke billowing to mimic a larger force. The riders slowed, wary, their wagons creaking to a halt. Red Hawk's warriors used the distraction, circling silently. Jamie and Tyan darted back, but a crack of hoofbeats sent them diving behind a rock. A lone rider, a grim-faced man with a sheriff's badge, spotted them. "You the kid with the book," he growled, dismounting. Jamie clutched the journal, ready to run. But the man raised a hand. "I'm Marshal Kane. Been tracking Silas's ring for months. Your pa's notes tipped us." Jamie's jaw dropped. Pa's work had reached beyond the grave. Kane's men, not Silas's, stormed the wagons, finding crates of shackles and ledgers listing stolen children. The backers, caught off guard, surrendered under rifle barrels. Silas, dragged before Kane, spat curses, his empire crumbling. Jamie stepped forward, journal open. "My pa wrote this," he said, voice steady despite his size. "He died for it." Kane's eyes softened, taking the book. "This'll bury him, kid. Every last one." The valley exhaled, but the world beyond turned cold. Townsfolk branded Jamie a traitor, spitting as he passed, their whispers sharp as cactus spines. His pa's land was seized, sold to Silas's silent partners. The church shunned him, kids pelting stones at his ragged figure. Yet Jamie felt no loss. Those folks had ignored Silas's evil. The Apache, though, opened their arms. Red Hawk gifted him a cord woven with river blue beads, a mark of family. Tayan, now a brother, taught him to track deer, their laughter echoing in the canyon. Months later, a cry rang from the Verde River, sharp and desperate. Jamie, stronger now, his trousers patched anew, ran with Tayan, their bare feet pounding earth. A Navajo girl, no older than 6, thrashed in the shallows, fleeing traffickers. Jamie dove in. The river's cold, no match for his resolve. He pulled her free, Tayan wrapping her in a blanket. The girl's eyes, wide with trust, mirrored Tayan's from that first day. Back at the camp, elders tended her, and Jamie saw his future, saving others, like Pa would have wanted. Nights by the river, Jamie read the journal's faded words, not with pain, but pride. "You started this, Pa," he whispered, stars glinting above. The Verde, once a thief, now carried hope, its current guiding lost souls to safety. Jamie Rivercord, no longer just a boy, stood tall, his family not bound by blood, but by choices made in fire and dust. When another cry echoed from the water, he didn't hesitate, knowing the river's path led to redemption. The Verde River's tale of Jamie's courage leaves us breathless, a testament to heart in the face of evil. What moved you most, his leap into the flood, or his stand against Silas? Share your thoughts and where you're listening from. Your voice keeps these stories alive. Gratitude for joining this journey through the Arizona dust. Your presence fuels our fire. Stay tuned for more tales of grit and redemption, where the frontier's truths unfold. Until we meet again by the river's edge, keep chasing what's right. Hit subscribe to never miss a story, and let's ride into the next adventure together.